Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to wrap up getting the quarter panel behind me back on the 72. Let's get started. That is right. Aside from this happy little accident we're going to ignore down here for right now, I've gotten this inner wheelhouse mocked up from our last video. If you haven't seen that yet, go up here. It's in one of these corners. The plan is to go ahead and get this wheelhouse section welded back in and get our quarter panel on. We've got this to deal with. We've got this to deal with. Slip it under here and put it back together. Now, yeah, this I measured multiple times, trimmed, I guess, once a little too much, but I can go ahead and massage this back in place. I'm not worried about that, but pretty much I'm just going to start getting this tacked in place. I've already fit the quarter panel on here a time or two just to make sure where everything is going to fit, and it does. The gaps where the wheelhouse and the lip of the quarter match up are darn near spot on. Right up here is also great where it goes back on the door frame. But I do have to go down to the shop and dig out the door and hang that before I do any final welding of the quarter panel, because I need to make sure that that is going to match up where it should be, because there's nothing worse putting it back together, hanging a door, and your lines on here are off by anything. So I gotta go find that. But then we're gonna get to welding on this, and I'm just gonna shut up and start working. Alrighty, we are ready to get this thing tacked in place. I've gone through, did a little more trimming and fitment to get it as close as we can, got this unsightly gap out of back there. And granted, this is a little wide. I cut it a little too short trying to even it up. Anyways, we can take care of that. I'm just going to put the helmet down and start welding. So here we go. Alrighty, well that's a start. For me, this is going to be a lot of stitch welding, back and forth. You do not want to get, you don't want to just draw a bead across the entire thing. This thin of sheet metal, of course, as you all know, will warp and burn through. So we're just going to keep bouncing around all the way around this panel until it's all buttoned up and tidied. So I'm going to just do that and not drag you along for that because, well, no. All right, so I'm going to put a few more tacks in here and then take off all these butt weld clamps, refit my quarter panel up here for the last time, make sure everything is how it should be, and assuming everything matches up where I think it's great, I'm going to go ahead and burn everything in and then come back and we'll get ready to put this on. So that's where we're at. And when I was cleaning out some other old metal under here from the old quarter panel, through one of the weep holes, oh, I'm getting too old for this. I found some of this. Does anybody know what this is? If it'll focus. Come on, focus. There we go. Anybody know what this is? You probably have to be 20 years or older to remember what this is. Maybe 30. If you can guess what it is, put a comment below, other than, well, garbage. Okay, back to work. Okay, like clockwork, the furnace turns on right when I want to start recording. We have our inner wheelhouse welded in. My seam sealer was hard as a rock, so for here, I took some of the Eastwood rubberized undercoating rust encapsulator stuff, slathered it over there on top of some primer. I took the regular internal frame coating and hit the other areas inside this cavity since it was exposed. And then also we took the rubberized undercoating on the underside and the wheel well here. So this should be pretty well covered against any moisture coming in and stopping anything else that is currently taking place back here. Now, I've got the door, went down to the shop and grabbed that. That is hung. And what I want to do is get our quarter panel back on, make sure our body line here is lined up before I start welding anything in. And once I get this in place, I'm going to drill a few pilot holes with the Clecos and get it set in place where it's going to end up finally once it's welded in. Take it back off, take all the E-coat stuff off where I'm going to be welding, hit it with the weld through primer, put it all back together, re-Cleco it, and start to weld it back together. So let's just grab this panel, put it on, and see how things go. You know, oh, door's locked. Nope, now it's really locked. Oh, well, now it's closed. It opened earlier. That wasn't supposed to happen. Let me get this door open. Well, I'm just gonna let that be for now because what we're doing, we don't need doors to open. So let's, I don't think anyways. Let's grab this, start fitting her in place where it should end up. Yeah, I think that's almost there. Well, we're almost there. You can see this has to come up a little, so that's why we're doing all this test fitting. Of course, the door may be a little misaligned, but well, that's not right either. So there's definitely going to be some massaging because here we've only got about, I don't know, 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch difference between quarter and the door, but here we've got a good probably 3/8 of an inch. And well, that's not very good. So I'm guessing when it's all said and done, this top edge here is going to have to get tapped down a little bit to meet up this panel, top of the door. And I know the bottom has to come up a little bit to fit in where it goes. But that's just going to be some of those things you fiddle with and futz with. And we've got just a tiny gap in here, which I expect to see right now, because it does have to come up a little bit. There we go. A little better. Yeah. Need to get the back here over the back of the body there. If I can find my little plastic pry thing. Whoop. All right, that almost fits in where it should. It still needs to go in another, well, 1/2 inch up here so I can fit over the trunk panel, the trunk frame. So this is just going to be, some fun. So yeah. We've got down here needs to tuck up. But in order for this to go in where it needs to go, I need to open the door and do a little bit of massaging down here. Maybe as I push this up where it goes, this will push out up just a little bit. But for now, we're kind of stuck. mean, it's at least in the ballpark. But yeah, this definitely definitely needs to move. Now, that's not an issue of me, but again, I think the door hinges need to be aligned just a little bit. I never took the hinges off the car itself, just the door. So I'm gonna have to align those a little bit, which probably explains why it's not opening for me now. So I'm gonna have to fiddle with that. But I'm gonna put one of my sheet metal screws back in here just to hold this thing in place so it doesn't fall off on me. But you can see how it should look when it's got a door and a quarter panel on, you know, except for that whole front thing up there. But I'm gonna spend some time trying to get that door open and get this lined up where it should go. And we'll come back whenever that happens. All right, it's a new day. It's been a few days, and I've spent a ton of time trying to get this thing lined up. Between being an old car, stuff being hit and damaged in the past, and me just simply not being an expert at this, it was kind of a challenge. Now, we ran into an issue earlier with a huge gap here. It was a good 1/2 inch, 3/8 of an inch gap. Here's a couple of pictures of that. Went and brought the other door up from the shop, hung it. Panel gap over there is darn near spot on. You know, there's some variance here. But talked to Darren, got some pictures of what the car looked like, you know, 20 years ago. And there was still, I'll show you here, there was still a gap in here that is bigger than this gap is here now. So I'm excited that this is, for the most part, closed up. The only big thing is that this door has a little more of a curve on it right here, and this is a little flatter. And I don't know that I'm going to do a whole lot about that. Darren says, you know what? It's going to be a fun car. It's not an auction car. It's not a show car. And if I start beating on this or trying to push this out, I think I'm just going to open up another can of worms I don't want to have anything to do with. But this up here lines up. Our body line here is spot on. And yeah, I had the wife come out and help me put a couple of screws in here to hold everything in place so I can get everything aligned, and it looks awesome. Our next step is to take everything back off, and I've gone and marked where I need to remove the E-coat for welding, and I'm gonna put it back on and just kind of start up here and work my way back. Now that I know this area here is how it should be, and this is a little wide here. Nothing a fault of this panel. Everything else down here looks really good. Maybe it's a little wide down here at the very bottom. If I do anything, I might take some round rod just in this section here to close in this gap just a little bit. And if you're not familiar with that, basically you take some round rod and form it to the shape, weld it on, and grind it or file it down to get your gap here as close as possible, and whatnot. So we'll see if I end up doing that. You know, that will close our gap up to maybe 1/8 of an inch, which is about what's over on the passenger side. And if possible, I'd like to get it matching as best possible. We'll see. But for now, I'm going to take this back off. We're going to get everything drilled out, cleaned up, prepped, and ready to go. So let's just start doing that. Part of the things I wanted to do as part of my testing and fitment was make sure that the windows still fit together, make sure I wasn't, for some reason, pulling this, this pillar out of whack with this quarter. And I get everything, ratchet strap, get everything lined back up on, and this is pretty well spot on. This is not, doesn't gap the top or anything. I do know that these seals need to get replaced because they're just pretty much deteriorating every time I look at them funny. Anyways, I wanted to show that before I took everything apart, just so someone could say, hey, you didn't pull this out of whack, did you? Nope, I checked. Alrighty, I've got the quarter panel off. The next step I'm going to do is take my drill, use whatever you've got, and take off the E-coat wherever I'm going to be welding these new surfaces together. After that, I'm going to hit it with my weld through primer. That's going to give us a good protected surface to mate everything up for welding. So let's just get to it. Alrighty, I'm pretty sure you can figure out what's going on. So I'm going to finish this up, get my holes opened up, and we'll get ready to hang this thing. This is looking promising. And like clockwork, the heater turns back on. Well, I wanted to be a lot farther at this point in the video, at least this point in time, but behind the Challenger here is the front bumper and miscellaneous parts for the X5. Was out for a date with the wife last night. And hit a deer. That happens. Actually, first time ever for me to hit anything on the road. But that took out a bunch of the front stuff, a bunch of the plastic parts. Headlight I can repair, hopefully, because that's $2,500. Fog light I can repair. Actually, fog light's fine. Just a lot of the plastic bracket and crap. So that's the latest getting back to this today. But here we are now. And as you see, the quarter is back on here. I went ahead and, like I said, pre-drilled and prepped all the surfaces we're going to be welding. I did get that goofy little bracket thing that I don't know what it does back here. That's welded onto the car. And once everything else is said and done, there's a few tack points on the quarter to hit. That can be done later. But for now, the important thing is the fender is on, or the quarter is on. Our gaps overall look really good. Again, except for this spot here, which I will probably just address with that round bar at some point down the road. Not in this video. But for now, let's work on getting this tacked in, work up through here, get this back. I probably want to start at the front, get the back area here, if you can see me still, over the tail section, and just kind of work through this. So I'm going to put on the welding mask and get her done. Well, we've got about 80% of our welds in. There's more to do here in the sail panel. You can see a couple to do actually along the roof. I only put in about half of the welds last year when I did it, mainly because it was sitting up higher and I couldn't reach there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up all those welds. There's a couple more to do here in the wheel well, but we did get some of the important ones done here in the window. Between the trunk filler, that's still warm, between the filler panel and the quarter panel, those are in. We've got most of the welds in here into the trunk, around the back, taillight housing, and of course the front door jamb. That did open up a little bit as we get everything else in place. And talking with Darren, he says, you know what, this car's been around, it's not perfect. These are not the original doors to the car. And even like I mentioned earlier, some of the pictures that he sent me earlier this week, there was a notably larger gap on this side than on the passenger side. So I think I'm still going to take some of that round bar, extend that door just 1/8 of an inch, and that should hopefully close up that gap to something a little more acceptable. But for now, I'm gonna wrap this one up. Like I said, I've got a bunch of other housekeeping, finish up some welding, just touch up stuff, grind up my welds from the inner fender from a few weeks ago, and just make sure. Next thing we can do is get the, trunk's right here, but get the hood. I wanna get everything set back on here and do any final adjustments for body work, whether it's adding, subtracting, whatever the case may be, so that we can blow it apart again one more time and get everything ready for primer. And yeah, it's making progress. Probably one or two more times, put it together, blow it apart. I've got to get that front headlight assembly, grill, hang that back on there, just to get everything buttoned up so when we do paint it, everything fits back together how it should. But that, of course, is a project for another day. I'm going to keep working here, and until the next video, thanks for watching this one. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button below. We're going to try and push through, get a lot of work done on the Challenger this year, and with any hope, back to Darren. I've got the 440 sitting over here off camera. I want to get that stabbed back in here too, because honestly, it's going to be a lot easier to drive that back and forth to the garage under its own power than with the Bobcat. So, till the next video, have fun, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.